Welcome back, people, to the Get Good Scrub podcast, where we will be discussing the latest in video game news. It's your boy, Cool Guy Fonz, joined by our very own Victor Stone, Mark the Cyborg.
Victor, so I was wondering who it was going to be this week. Yes, I'm the real cyborg, not wait, what was the nickname they give the guy, the actor, Cryborg? Yeah, because he complains
Wow.
about yeah. I don't know. I wasn't really following the Snyder Cut drama too much, but apparently our boy is no fan of Joss Whedon. He was,
Or Warner Brothers.
yeah, apparently.
Brothers.
All right, Fawn. So what are we talking about today?
We're going to be discussing the hard, easy debate going on online right now with varying personalities weighing in, as well as Ubisoft canceling support for Might and Magic 10. And we're going to finish off with the new Steam Deck that was announced just yesterday. But for now, let's start with this Get Good discussion heating up. So on July 9th, Xbox tweeted out, beating the game on the lowest difficulty is still beating the game. And then Double Fine responded with, if you beat Psychonauts 2 with the invincibility toggle on, you still beat P2. Now it's kind of funny because Double Fine is a subsidiary of Microsoft Xbox Studios, and they created Psychonauts, but obviously this is the Get Good Scrub podcast. So how do you feel about the easy hard debate?
Okay, so the two tweets that you read there, I didn't really have much of an issue with, because if their whole thing is they're trying to make a statement to people who like playing on easy modes to make them feel more comfortable about playing their game on the lowest difficulty, I honestly have no issue with that. Where I had the problem was Double Fine's next tweet that really kind of called back the Battlefield 5 don't like it, don't buy it. If you don't think women were fighting on the front lines of World War II, you're just uneducated stuff. Because it was super condescending. So the next tweet that Double Fine made, the one that pissed me off, or at least made me think like, oh, that's a seriously bad idea, is a quotation. So it's Double Fine is impersonating a like straw man gamer character, saying, excuse me, I beat Sword Guy Serious Time on a no-hit hard mode, and if you didn't do that, I don't respect you. And like, can you even comment on things if you're not Diamond 6 rank and Shooty McBlam? I don't think so. Cool, bud. You're so cool. And I'm like, see, don't do that. Because what you're doing there is the Psychonauts is not really a game that I would think is going to be one that's like super challenging, like a Dark Souls type game where it's like finishing the game is going to be super difficult. But that doesn't mean that people who like those kind of games or are proud of what they rank in Counter-Strike or Valorant or whatever wouldn't play that game. So basically what you're doing there is condescending to some of your potential customers. So you could say the part where it's like if you beat the game on easy, you still beat the game and you're not offending anyone. But then you do the, oh yeah, like people who think they're good at video games and are proud of their accomplishments in this hobby that we're making games for, they're just morons who like are proud about silly, stupid stuff. And it's even funnier that this Twitter is apparently run by Heather Alexandra, was a former Kotaku writer. So it is the gaming journalist meme of like, we play games on easy, and if you don't like that, you're just a bigot. And it's like, ugh.
Game reviewer excited to play the game she just reviewed.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't see why people who take the easy mode good stance have to act like playing on hard mode or being proud of accomplishments you've made in video games, that regardless of how useless and silly it is to be like, yeah, I beat Dark Souls Soul Level 1 no hit. It's like, yeah, okay, well, granted, how much money did that make you? I mean, honestly, if you did that and streamed it, you'd probably make a fair amount. But realistically, it's like, yeah, you're right. Me getting the platinum trophy in Hotline Miami didn't earn me anything. It didn't get me any girls, but I'm still proud of it because it was hard and I did it. I overcame a challenge, not because I wanted to brag to everybody else, but because I accomplished it for myself. Or same with every other Souls game I've played and stuff. I'm not really beating it to up my gamer cred. It's I like overcoming challenges. And there's plenty of gamers who like overcoming challenges and are proud of the challenges they overcome. Now, you can be a dick about it, and I'm not saying that no one who plays difficult games isn't a dick about it, like saying, yeah, no, if you don't play Doom Eternal on Nightmare mode, you're a bitch. But, like, yeah, okay, that's a little out of line, but I don't think it is a good idea for a company who is trying to sell a product, because ultimately Psychonauts 2, you can be like, oh, it's a quirky artistic game that's kind of like a Pixar movie. It's still a product. You still need to sell it to customers, and you can make a statement that makes some of your customers feel comfortable, and that's fine. But if you then double down and try to belittle other potential customers, you're not going to help your case. Like, it might not have made any difference, because honestly, anyone seeing this would have had to look at the Double Fine Twitter, but you're not helping your case. And I don't really like seeing game developers and game publishers do stuff like that, because it's like, man, what are you doing? Like, you're pitting people against each other for no real reason, mostly to act as if the mass market is going to be playing with the invincibility mode on, because I honestly don't think they are. I think that many more people will play on the normal difficulty than will ever play on like an Assassin's Creed Discovery mode, where you're just walking around, you can't die, and you just kind of walk through the story.
Even in Doom, like the original Doom, when you got like God mode, it's fun to start off, like you play a level or two, but could you really beat the whole game on God mode? Like, is it really fun? But you touched on two things. One of them was, like, as we discussed, just the difference between easy, standard, and hard mode. And it depends on what you're playing the game for. Now, I just ran into this. When I started Dead Space, as always, I try all games on hard mode. I realized about 10 years ago, games got ridiculously easier, besides like from software games, but like on average, games were much easier. And for me to be challenged, I just started on hard mode. But I wasn't streaming, I wasn't reviewing games. I had 120 hours to be Ghost of Tsushima, so I just did it on hard, right? When I started Dead Space, I started it on hard, thinking, yeah, I'm gonna go through this on hard. But I knew that I had to finish a little bit faster so me and you could discuss it. About a couple hours in, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I was still on chapter 1, and I went to the normal mode and I started again, just because that game I needed to finish in a quicker time, and the standard mode is still acceptable. If you're playing a game just to find out what the story is, go right ahead. And most of them say, like, play it on easy. If you just want to know what the story of this game is, play it on easy and you're fine. You won't get the mechanics of it and you won't get the challenge from it, but you'll get the gist of it. And if we compare it to sports, it's the same thing. Like, if you want to play in the NBA, go nuts. Be the best basketball player in the world. There are easier levels of basketball you could join along the way. If you're not as good to be in the NBA, you could play in the G League, you could play in Europe, you could play in other leagues. Like, this attack on, if you're not the best, then we have a problem, is horrible too, right? Like, and I just don't get it, like, why people have to be so toxic with each other.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm not defending that at all. I wouldn't say that, like, I mean, again, it sort of goes back to what I said a few episodes ago about the title of our show, and why I often feel like the Get Good meme is misunderstood. For those who might not know, the name of our podcast, Get Good Scrub, is a sort of a joke about a Dark Souls meme, when people say, like, oh man, how do you beat this level? And then the answer is, just get good, scrub. Like, calling the person a scrub and telling them to get good, and it's jokingly spelt incorrectly, like GITGUD, not how you actually spell get good. But the trick about the meme is that it's get good. It's not be good already. So the idea is that it's supposed to encourage you to get better at something and then overcome the challenge that is stopping you. And when people reinforce that, like, oh yeah, just put it on easy mode, playing a game on easy mode, exactly the same as playing it on hard mode. No, it's no different at all. If you're playing on hard mode, it's just because you prefer that experience. But if you beat the game on easy, you still beat the game. It's like, you did, but at the same time, it's like you don't really have a concept of what that game actually is. You walked through the story, but if someone asked you, hey, like, what are the mechanics of this game like? What's the ammo economy like? How is the combat? And you're like, oh man, yeah, it's awesome. Like I wander into a room and just every single enemy dies in one hit. I can take 30 bullets. It's totally great. It's like, oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
not much of a
you
criticism,
mentioned
but
it. You mentioned it in our pre-show. Like, if you played Ghost of Tsushima on easy, you probably would not have known that there is a parry and like an auto kill if you get a perfect parry, right?
mhm.
Because you would just never have had to use it, and they probably never attacked you in a way to stop it. Or if you played Halo not on Legendary Edition, you wouldn't know how powerful the plasma rifle is against shields because you would just auto rifle them everyone to
Yeah,
death, right?
the auto rifle could take out shields on easy and normal really realistically pretty easily, but the auto rifle is essentially useless on legendary
On
mode.
Legendary,
Like,
right? It drastically changes the game you've played. It is
mhm.
almost a totally different game. So like I encourage people to play on a more challenging difficulty if that's what you're into. Like I like the narrative story of it, but I also like the challenge of playing video games. So I choose to play on hard, and I find it is an accomplishment when you beat it on hard versus beating it on easy. Like you should be not monetary rewarded for it, but the pride and satisfaction of completing a job that is harder than most people can do. And that's fine
Yeah.
because that's what the developers wanted, right?
Yeah, and I mean, again, like if you do play on easy modes, because like I mean, my wife, Xray girl, she plays most games on easy. She's not really much of a gamer. She's incredibly good at Beat Saber, where she'll play on Expert Plus, and she plays probably like half an hour of Crypto the Necrodancer every day. So I don't know if there's difficulty modes in that game because I haven't played it, but she's probably pretty good at that one too. But when she was playing like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Resident Evil 8, she just played on easy because she was doing it for her streams. She spends most of her time talking to the chat, and essentially she's just kind of fiddling around in the video game and making her way through the story. I would never be like, oh yeah, my wife sucks at video games. Like, it's just, she's not into that kind of super challenging gameplay in narrative games, and that's totally fine. But she'd also never say to me, I'm just as good at video games as you, you know? Just because you play on hard mode and I play on easy, there's no difference. Like, she'll be like, no, you're better at video games than I am. And like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a dick, but yeah, I've earned that by being good at video games, and not automatically by challenging myself and dying and trying to play on harder difficulties and learning video game mechanics. And honestly, I think that I wouldn't be able to make the videos that I make if I didn't try to engage with more difficult games and play around with different difficulty levels on different games, because as we were saying with Halo, as the difficulty increases, you start to realize the subtleties of game mechanics, and you can't really get that if you're playing a Devil May Cry game and every single enemy dies in 3 hits with your sword and you're basically impossible to kill. Or like I said, playing Doom and you can just take all sorts of damage and use nothing but the super shotgun to just get through the entire game. Although to be fair, in Doom 2016, you kind of can get through most of the game with just the super shotgun. But my point is, I don't understand why people selling a game would denigrate people who are proud of their accomplishments in video games, because you don't need permission to be proud about anything that you've done. Like you could argue that some of the most proud accomplishments that I've done are things like learning to walk again once I got my prosthetic leg, which, yeah, you're right, that sounds like a real kind of hallmark moment of like, man, yeah, you learned to walk after losing a limb. That's pretty amazing. But it's like, yeah, I mean, at the same time though, I got a lot more joy out of the time that I beat Sekiro. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, maybe that's just how I'm wired, but it's like, yeah, I wanted to walk again, but that more felt like something that I had to do. It was a challenge that was in my way that I had no choice but to overcome, or else like I would have a significant hit to my quality of life. But playing a video game, playing a hard video game, that's a challenge that I'm voluntarily taking on. There's nothing keeping me there. I can quit at any time, and it's not costing anyone but me anything. And even then, it's not costing me anything real either. I'm not losing any money. Like I said, Xray Girl's not going to leave me if I decide to give up halfway through Elden Ring. But I will be like, ugh, that was the From Software game that beat me. And I would feel bad about it. So it's more that like trying to act like people being proud of the things they do in games are something they should be embarrassed about, because playing on easy mode's exactly the same, is something that you can fire at each other in comment sections if you want, but I don't think that a company trying to sell a product should be doing stuff like that. I think it's super unprofessional, and I think whatever they gain from it is incredibly minimal compared to what they could potentially lose from it. Because for all the people who play on easy mode, that'll be like, yeah, fucking right, those super good video game players that like act like I'm not as good as they are, even though I play on easy mode. For all those people that are going to be like thumbs up on that tweet, you're going to have a bunch of people that are like, all right, well, fuck you then. And they're not going to buy your game. So like, I mean, granted it's on Game Pass. So most people that it will be on Game Pass. I mean, so most people that want to give it a shot will probably just download it on Game Pass anyways. But I mean, I'm honestly kind of soured on it now because I'm like, okay, Double Fine. Well, if you want to play it like that, I guess you don't want people like me in your community, so I won't do that. And again, the argument is often made. It's like, okay, well, yeah, but you're a toxic gamer, so you're right. Get out of the community. I'm like, okay, but you can only say that to so many people before your community is too small to support the games that you're making, right?
Whittle down. We didn't talk about it too, but Colin Moriarty had the best response. So a game journalist tweeted out, I have never played a game for review on anything but the easiest difficulty, and I never will. And Colin's classic response, if you can't or won't beat games on anything harder than easy, and you're reviewing them from the perspective and not from the perspective of the average player, then your criticism is worthless. Seek out critics who actually like video games. It's all getting a little trite. Colin.
Yeah, Colin, that's hit the nail on the head. And again, I thought the funniest thing was I saw a bunch of replies to his tweet saying like, yeah, this is why everyone hates Colin Moriarty. I'm like, that's why I love him.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like, obviously Colin is going to be shout out a lot on this channel because we're a big fan of his. And because he's honest. And that's the thing. Like, I don't care about I don't care about people's political views, but when your job is to review and discuss video games, I don't care about your political views. Like that's something separate, right?
Well, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we really wanted to try and do on this podcast. Like you're never going to see us talking about the elections or whether or not you voted for the people who we voted for. Granted, we're Canadian, so chances are you're probably American if you're listening to this. So you probably aren't even voting in the same elections as us. But honestly, I don't know who Fonz voted on the last 4 or 5 elections, and I don't really care. We're still friends. We just don't like have arguments like that. It's fine.
I'm a scrub in the gaming community. I'm even worse in the social community. All right? Like my opinion definitely should not matter when it comes to high level debates.
Yeah.
But moving on, we got Ubisoft in the news. So after announcing they're going to do a live service for Assassin's Creed, they sent out a statement issued to Eurogamer that read like this. On June 1st, we shut down various service from several legacy games on PC, including for Might and Magic 10 Legacy, as they could no longer meet our security standards. During the process, we unfortunately encountered an unexpected issue with this title, preventing new and returning players from accessing the game and its DLC. We are currently investigating all available options and will keep players informed as we can share more. In the meantime, we made the decision to remove Might and Magic 10's Legacy from sale until further notice. Now, Might and Magic 10 literally came out in 2014. It's only been out for 6 years. And they're ending basically all support for the game at the present time. So with this cancellation, you can no longer play the single player and the multiplayer versions of this game. It's basically useless. If you bought the game, you can't do anything with it anymore. And now they're going to try to sell us on a live service for Assassin's Creed, which is pretty funny.
This is why, as much as, granted, my chair probably has a lot to do with it, but when people call me a CD Projekt shill, it's not Cyberpunk. That's not the reason why I would actually like shill for not CD Projekt Red necessarily, but the CD Projekt Group. It's because their PC game storefront, GOG, has no digital rights management. What has happened with Might and Magic 10 here is Ubisoft has shut down the DRM, digital rights management servers, which basically means in English that when you launch the game, your account handshakes a Ubisoft server and says, yes, I own this game. And then the Ubisoft server says, cool, you're allowed to play the game, and then you can play. But when there's no one on the other end of that handshake, that software becomes 100% useless because you're just holding out your hand for the handshake and no one's ever going to touch it. So the only way that you can play Might and Magic 10 now, even if you bought the game, is if you get a pirated cracked copy of it. The beauty about GOG is that every single game you buy on that store is effectively the same as a pirated cracked copy, just it's one that you pay for and has cloud saves and achievements and all sorts of other things. And it's sort of why, as we move into an era where digital game sales are overtaking, if not just absolutely decimating physical game sales, especially obviously on PC, because there's effectively no physical PC games anymore. I mean, you could buy a game on GOG and then make yourself a physical copy if you want, but that's pretty much it. You can't like go into an EB Games or a GameStop and just buy a copy of Doom Eternal like on disc for PC. Yeah, like that. Yeah. That doesn't really happen. And Steam does have some DRM free games. I think the safer aspect of Steam is that they're so big that they probably aren't going to be turning off servers unless something seriously horrible happens in the industry to Valve, which I hope it doesn't because I like Valve quite a lot. But that doesn't change the fact that I think GOG's system of just, if you buy the game, you own this game, you can do whatever you want with it. You can copy it, you can give it to a friend. You shouldn't, because that's kind of an ethical breach because they didn't pay for the game. But if you want to give it to them so they can try it and then maybe they'll buy their own copy, that's cool. Like, I like that they're relaxed about it. And they're just like, yeah, you know what? If you want to keep this store going so that we have these kind of service, don't abuse our consumer-friendly features, but they're there. And you can return a game a month after you bought it, even if you put 500 hours into the game. Like, they have crazy policies like that where you're just like, wow, you guys are insane. But if Might and Magic 10 was on GOG, or Ubisoft just allowed it to be sold on GOG now that they've taken down the servers for it, then people would still be able to play that game forever. I've never played Might and Magic 10. It's not my game, obviously. I didn't even really know it existed, to be honest. I know the Might and Magic series, but 10, I hadn't seen anything out before this story. So I'm not speaking from like, oh, personally, I'm super pissed that Might and Magic 10's gone. But there's small games that not a lot of people liked that I really love. And any one of them could theoretically have the same situation if it has DRM. So I don't know. It's just I don't like hearing stories like this because as an advocate for digital marketplaces, like I like digital games more than physical games for the most part, which I sometimes get heat on. But I don't want to have 50 DVD cases and like or Blu-ray cases for all the games that I have. It's just much easier to have my like 500 games on Steam that are just all on my account and that's it.
Definitely I'm a big fan of GOG and the GOG Galaxy Store and launcher. I don't know if you've ever do you use that at all?
Me? Oh yeah, all the time.
Like, it is way better than I play all my Steam games through the GOG Galaxy launcher. It launches it for me. It keeps all my play times in one place. I honestly, I love everything about CD Projekt Red. Not the launch of Cyberpunk, but CD Projekt is a great company because they've proven, which like I feel like Napster was the start of it, that like, yeah, you can pirate stuff and get it for free, but if you're a real fan, you have no problems paying for it. And the majority of consumers have no problems paying for stuff that they love. They want to support it because they know that if they pay for it, they'll get more in the future.
Yeah.
And that's a concept that like I don't think a lot of huge companies understand, that we want to pay for stuff because we want it to continue moving on. Sure, like we could download Witcher 3 and I'll have my copy of it and I could burn it to a CD and give it to all my friends. But in the end, then CD Projekt Red wouldn't make Cyberpunk in the future if we all did that. So we might as well just give them the $50. We're fine with it. Or the 30 if you get it on sale, right? Mm-hmm. So this is pretty sad for Ubisoft, and it's not looking good for them in the future. But we're gonna have to see how this turns out. It says that they are working on fixing this problem, but depending on how many people still play Might and Magic 10, they might say, you know what, it's just not worth it. Like, why pay somebody 30 to 40 hours to try to fix this when we could just move on? Like, not enough people care about the game, so we don't have to care about it. But it sucks for the people that did care about the game and we're still playing it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, if there's 100 players that are just super dedicated and this was their game, it's those guys I feel sorry for. Like that's
Yeah.
not a lot of people in the grand scheme of the industry. That sucks. But if you had a PlayStation 1 game that was super obscure and you and 100 people thought that was the best game ever, Sony wouldn't be able to just turn off your copy, right? Like,
Yeah.
you would always be able to play that game unless your disc gets scratched up or something like that. So I think that as we move further away from physical copies, we need to, or the industry does, need to think about ways to keep the positives of physical copies without compromising the positives of digital copies. And I think that DRM-free games is pretty much the best way to do that. And I'm happy the GOG does it. I wish more companies did, especially apparently Ubisoft should look into that.
Yeah. Moving on, we got something you seem pretty pumped about. Announced yesterday, we're gonna get the new Steam Deck, portable handheld gaming PC created by Valve. Should be shipping out in December of 2021. No exact release date yet. AMD has created its own custom Zen 2 CPU and an RDNA 2 GPU with 16 gigabytes of RAM, 16:10 aspect ratio, 720p because the screen is so small, you shouldn't need more, with a 2 to 8 hour battery life depending on what you're playing. It's Linux based but works with Windows 11, so it can literally be used as a portable PC, which is pretty cool. So before we get into like the extras and the versions, what do you think of this new Steam Deck just as the model?
I honestly think that this is something that Valve probably should have done a long time ago. There was a console initiative that Valve did a few years ago called the Steam Box, where they didn't build the hardware themselves. What they did was license a spec of a similar thing, like a Linux-based PC, like running Steam OS, that is like a Linux-based operating system specifically for Steam, which most games support, although some games still only support Windows. So it'll be interesting to see how that works, or how the system runs if you install Windows on it. But I think that they realized that licensing it out to partners and having it so that they have no control over the price made it so that what eventually happened with the Steam boxes is they'd all be pretty expensive, essentially impossible to upgrade. And if you just built your own PC for the same price as these consoles, like these Steam box consoles, you would have a better PC that does all the same stuff anyways. So it sort of was a product for no particular audience. Because if you're a hardcore PC gamer and you just wanted the new thing, then it's like, well, this little box, aside from being small, offers me nothing because I have a PC. And as an entry-level PC, it's pretty expensive. This, on the other hand, though, the Nintendo Switch style concept of a handheld system with a 720p screen that you can dock and plug into a monitor or a TV and use as basically a very tiny but pretty decently powerful gaming PC is kind of unbelievable. Like it's incredibly awesome in a lot of ways, as long as it ends up working well. I think that where they'll run into issues are heat management and battery life. That seems to be what a lot of people have been expressing concerns about, but I think that we won't really know the specifics on that until the console's actually out. And I don't think that if you're running, I don't know, Metro Exodus at like ultra settings, this thing's going to have very long battery life and it's probably going to explode in your hands. But if you're playing indie games, like, I mean, for me, playing like the Trails games, like Trails of Cold Steel on this thing in bed, just leveling up my characters will be so awesome. Like, I can't wait for that. Or playing games like Darkest Dungeon or Hollow Knight, like little indie games. And I just think that if the Nintendo Switch, what we were talking about last week, the SWOLED, the Switch OLED, the SWOLED, that is such a marginal upgrade, and that really nothing about it is different except for the screen. And I don't think that the Steam Deck has an OLED screen, so I guess the Switch does
Nope.
have that on it. But it's like, well, I mean, if it's possible to, for an extra, I guess, what, $100 for the entry level? The Switch is $350 and this is $399, I think. So
Yeah.
$50 more. The Switch OLED, and $299 for the normal Switch. For an extra $50, you are sacrificing the Nintendo first party games. I should say that because I know off the bat every single Nintendo fan is going to be like, yeah, well, can you play Metroid? Yeah, actually, yeah, I can emulate most of the Metroid games. But I'll give you that. I'll say yes. No first run Nintendo first party games. But you can play Resident Evil 8 on it. You can play The Witcher 3 on it and not running like the Switcher 3. Like having it run at like a decent frame rate. And because like 16 gigabytes of RAM on something that small is like kind of insane. Most of the laptops that you asked me to look up for your cousin, I was mostly trying to find ones that were 16 gigs of RAM and not 8, because I find that is often the difference between a low-end PC and a mid-range PC. It's 8 and 16 gigs of RAM. Granted, things like your CPU and your GPU matter a lot as well, but for set-top boxes like laptops or pre-built PCs or things like the Steam Deck, the RAM is generally the thing that gets cheaped out on. If you hear scratching, it's because Harley's kind of going nuts below me.
No worries.
But yeah, and I think that this is a really solid bet. Some people have had concerns about the Valve hardware build, but I've got a Valve Index, their VR headset, and it's a remarkable piece of hardware. The controllers are absolutely amazing. Actually, so this is the Valve Index controller. It is amazing. You kind of hold it in your hand like this, or it's the left-hand one that I've got. And so you can let go. You can have your hand just kind of opened. In most games, that'll have your hand, like if it's a game that senses your fingers, it'll have your whole hand open there. There's touch sensors on each of these positions here. So you can actually like have each of your individual fingers touching the thing. There's a touchpad right there that lets you do the same for your thumb. An analog stick that lets you move around, which is a lot better than... That's the main advantage over... Fonz has an HTC Vive, and there's only a touch trackpad on the back of that, and that's why I find the analog stick helps a lot for things like movement. So I'm pretty sold on Valve's ability to make hardware, more so than a lot of people are. I know that a lot of people weren't super happy about the Steam controller or the Steam Link. I've actually got both of those too, but they're upstairs, so I'm not going to go get them. But the Steam controller, I think its main advantage was its gyro controls, which, to be fair to the Switch also has gyro controls, which I think for... I honestly think that more console first-person shooters and stuff should be using gyro controls, because it is quite a bit more accurate than using a right stick to aim. Basically, what you would often do is use the right stick for your macro-level movements of moving like long distances, but then tilt the controller and use the gyroscope to get that fine point to get those headshots and stuff. And I
believe the Steam Deck will have the Steam Deck
controls?
does have gyro. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because that is kind of Valve's thing. Like, they say that like gyro controls in conjunction with analog sticks is basically what can equal mouse and keyboard. And I don't necessarily agree with that 100%, but it might also be just because I'm not that good at using gyro controls. I've seen some people just be ridiculous at it, though. Then again, I mean, to be fair, I've seen people be ridiculous at aiming with a right analog stick too. So
you mentioned it's gonna have a docking station, gonna output to 8K for your TV if you really wanted it to. USB-C Bluetooth audio support, and very important, headphone jack. Now, not a lot of things come with a headphone jack, and I'm starting to feel like almost like a dinosaur because I love having my own headphone jack just in case I didn't charge my Bluetooth or it's not connecting properly. I like having that manual thing, but maybe it's just an old-fashioned thing that me and you are having a hard time letting go of. But I love the fact that it does have a headphone jack. It'll have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but no cellular data. So you can't play on the go online unless you have Wi-Fi. Which I guess like most people now, I don't know if you've ever been to Japan, but like Japan has like wireless Wi-Fi little docks that like are $20 for like a week, and you could just go anywhere and have portable Wi-Fi. It's really awesome.
Nah, that's amazing.
It's a lot more expensive here because I think Rogers has it, but it's like $250 for the month. And anyways,
Oof, yeah, that's rough for a month of Wi-Fi.
yeah, it's ridiculous. Uh, so there are three versions, like you mentioned. There's the $399 version for 64 gigabytes of RAM. There is the $529 for 250 gigabytes of NVMe RAM, which it
Oh,
works a lot
storage.
faster.
Wouldn't be
Storage.
RAM for NVMe, just
Sorry,
storage.
yeah, storage, which is faster than the 64 gigabyte one, and the $649 one with 512 gigabytes of NVMe storage, as well as a collector's case. I think it comes with, and all three can be increased with a micro SD card, anyways.
Yeah, and
So
the Canadian prices for those, for Fonz and I's information, and all our Canadian brethren, is $499 for the 64 gig, $659 for the 256, and $512 for and $819 for the 512 gigabyte.
jeez.
So that's what we're dealing with in Canada, and we our salaries are pretty much right where yours are too, so, and we pay more in taxes.
Honestly, I'm gonna have a debate between like an internal debate between this and the Switch because I really need like a portable device. Especially traveling from Toronto to Montreal every so often. I like taking the train, so having something on the go with me is always a plus. But like you said with the Nintendo exclusive, like right now I'm still going towards the Switch because I need to see this in action because like you said, like it is a powerful device, so the heating is going to be a problem. Like there is just a little fan on the back of it to exhaust all this power, and the battery life. Like if we're doing 60 frames per second and we're running like high graphics, which is the whole point of it, if we're only getting 2 hours and then you have to plug in, like are you really playing on the go anymore?
Well, I mean, at least the benefit to, I mean, now I'm going to sound like I'm shilling for Valve, but at least the benefit for you on the train is most of the trains on CN have, or Via have plugs though, right? So you
Yeah,
can just
they
plug it
do.
in. Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I find that like for the times that I am like on the subway in Toronto or in a
Yeah.
situation where I'm playing a game, like waiting at the auto shop, like for my car to finish, which I'm assuming I'll be able to do now that the lockdowns are ending. Because the last time I actually went to get my oil changed and my winter tires switched, I had to rent a car and come back the next day to pick up my car. Granted, at least the Toyota in the area that I'm in made it so that they gave us a deal, so I only paid $30 to rent the car, and that was not too unreasonable. But
Yeah.
anyways, so what is most of the time I can remember playing Switch out in public or stuff like waiting for my oil to get changed or being on the subway. And the length of time I'm doing either of those things are not generally like 4 to 6 hours. Granted, I will say this is subjective. Like, I mean, you might be in a situation where you've got no access to power, but you want to play a game. And I guess anytime I'm in the field in the army, if I brought like my Vita out there, the Vita battery would last quite a while for the most part, and I would generally be playing there. But I think that your Icarus choices are gonna matter a lot here, because again, if you want to be playing Doom Eternal at like max settings, you're probably gonna have to be prepared to have that 2 hour battery life. Whereas if you're playing, I mean, I guess going by even this promo image there in the background, Hades, the one right next to Doom Eternal there, that game is a lot lighter. You could probably it runs on Switch, so it's a game that's probably much more in the target of this type of hardware. Or a game of the very one on the very far right there, just above your head, is Dead Cells. That's another one that I think would be really great to play in this one. I'm really looking forward to playing Darkest Dungeon again, because I got really pissed off at the game Darkest Dungeon when I was playing on Switch. Yeah, I think Switch. It was either Switch or Vita. I was playing it on a handheld. That's kind of why I was like, oh, okay, when this handheld comes out, I'll actually play Darkest Dungeon again. And I activated the Vampire DLC, which breaks the game. If you ever play the game Darkest Dungeon, don't activate. I think it's called the Crimson Court. It really makes the game so horrible, because it essentially makes it so that there's these mosquito enemies that give you this blood poisoning that will slowly kill your characters, and your characters have permadeath, so once they die, they're gone. And it's incredibly hard to cure because the items that you need to cure it aren't very easy to farm. And very often you'll cure a person, and then because those mosquito enemies can show up anywhere, that same person or another person will just get infected in the next battle. So that made me like quit that game. But so I'm going to play it again on this new Steam Deck, and I'm not going to activate the Crimson Court DLC.
Speaking of exclusivity, because we mentioned that if you wanted to play first party Nintendo games, you had to get a Switch. The Steam Deck is going to allow you to use the Epic Store as well. So I would assume GOG as well, but they specifically said the Epic Store will be accessible, which is great for people that like using the Epic Store. I know you do not, but like we said, like the more access people have, the better.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like, oh man, it sucks that Steam's allowing access to the Epic Store. I think they should, but also it's a PC. So I thought actually what was really funny is if you the IGN interview about this, all the questions they were asking were kind of just like, yeah, but I mean, can you do things like install like Photoshop on this? And the Valve guy's like, yeah, it's a PC. He's like,
yeah,
but wouldn't it be
really
kind of
is
weird if you can do like things like that, like running Windows or applications in the background? The guy's like, yeah, it's a PC.
Is it gaming only, or can it run other PC applications? Can it do other things?
Can pretty much run anything you can run on a PC.
So we could go to IGN.com on it.
Absolutely.
Adjust graphics settings within it, or is it sort of locked into a specific settings profile based on the horsepower of the machine?
All the normal options that you'd get in PC games are accessible.
Are you locked into Steam, or can you, because you mentioned this a minute ago, Pierre-Luc, or can I log into the Microsoft Store with my Game Pass Ultimate account or my Epic Games Store account?
Again, you can really do anything that you would expect a PC to be able to do. So the answer to those things is yes.
How about mod support? Again, seems like a yes.
Really the same answer, because PC can do those things. So we've built this device to support all of that.
it's
a handheld,
a walking PC.
It's a PC connected to a monitor. It's a laptop with no keyboard. That's it. It's a tablet that has Steam OS installed on it. But it's still a PC, so you can install Windows on it, just like you can install Windows on a Mac too. Like, I mean, just because your operating system is better suited to specific hardware. Now, I think that is another thing that will probably deal a lot with battery life and heat management. I imagine if you install Windows, you're probably going to have to be dealing with a bit of a performance hit. Now, I will likely, at least for the first little bit, try to see if I can just get away with using the Steam OS and playing all the games I want to play. But there might be a situation where it's like, man, say Trails of Cold Steel, that would be perfect for me to play on the go. I could get a bunch of the side missions done in each chapter, and then when I'm ready to do one of the story missions, I'll hop on my TV and play there. So if it's like, okay, Windows only for that, I might be like, I gotta install Windows on this thing. But for the most part, I think that it will likely, again, this is speculation, not going on anything. It's not like I have one of these in my hand. It's probably pretty likely that if you're using the Steam OS, that will optimize the battery life and the heat management, I would say.
Yeah, so we have until December to figure it out, just in time for the holiday season. I guess we're moving on to our Dead Space update. So I just finished chapter 5.
Oh, okay.
I got the... Speaking of easy hard, I was trying to shoot those asteroids when you're using like the beam gun. That must have taken me an hour.
Oh, really? I don't think I missed a single one of them. Were you using a mouse?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I was just like boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh, this has made this incredibly easy.
Oh, don't worry. There should be I am definitely gonna upload my footage for this. Like, yo, I don't get it. Like, I understand why it's a skill to be good at this. Like, I
split
died.
screen. I'll show my footage of that part and then yours.
Like, it's just, oh my god. But anyways, I got through it. Then there was a boss battle. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty easy puzzle.
Wait, hold on. Like the 0G one?
The 0G boss battle? No, the cryo. You're fighting like
in the cryo chamber, and then you lock the guy in
cryo.
there?
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
All right, yeah, I forgot that was that mission. So I finished chapter 7, so I'm a little bit ahead of you. But chapter 6 has a really awesome boss battle that involves 0G. Probably showing footage of it right now, so you might have a bit of a spoiler if you don't play it before this premiere happens. but it was so cool. I was just like, oh man, this is awesome right here. And I also watched Dead Space Downfall, which is a promotional anime back in the days where pretty much everything would get a tie-in anime. I think it was not too long after Enter the Matrix. Or not Enter the Matrix, the Animatrix.
Animatrix, yeah.
Yeah, and I liked this. I thought that it was pretty cool. It basically takes place on the Ishimura immediately before Dead Space. It primarily follows this security captain named Alyssa Vincent, who is essentially taking her team around trying to figure out what's going on as the necromorphs are sort of taking over the Ishimura. It did some interesting stuff and taught me a bit of lore about the Dead Space universe, where apparently in addition to the kind of winged moth-looking things that turn you into a necromorph, the marker, so that kind of religious artifact thing, will drive people insane and turn them against each other, which I thought was really neat. So, I noticed that there was a visual cue in the anime where every time a character started looking like they were sweating like crazy, you knew that person was about to go insane and start killing someone. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty neat. It's kind of got like a bit of a John Carpenter's The Thing happening, but it's not quite so psychological where the necromorphs can just flat out turn into other people. It's more like which one of these people is getting possessed by the necromorphs right now, or by the marker. And went into a bit more about also the Unitologist, which I think is the cult name that is not at all subtle, because it's basically exactly a combination of the Unitarians and the Scientologists. Like they just took those two words and then put them together. But they actually showed them in kind of a sympathetic light in the anime. There was this one character who kind of looked like an old native dude. Like he had a braid and kind of, it was really like thick and like big beer belly, and had like the gray hair just kind of there. And basically his whole thing was the Unitologists were getting upset about what the crew, the Ishimura, was doing with the marker, and they were kind of rebelling against the crew, and the crew was essentially threatening them. And then this guy kind of comes over, he's like, hey, like, let me talk to them. And he shows his little like rock necklace. He's like, I'm one of them. And then speaks to them, and they all just kind of stand down after he talks to them. And that character then becomes this like badass dude who figures out that cutting off the limbs is what kills them. And I was like, man, this is all right. And there's even a second one that I think takes place before Dead Space 2 that I'm looking forward to checking out later. But yeah, it was $5 on iTunes, so I recommend checking that out if you
that's awesome.
are looking to jump into Dead Space, or you've been playing Dead Space along with us and you want a bit of extra lore and context. It was pretty cool, and it ends with the like Isaac ship coming up and being like,
coming to help.
Read us.
Yeah. Just speaking of old animes that were in conjunction with video games, which one was better for you? Brotherhood for Final Fantasy 15, Kingsglaive, or Advent Children for Final Fantasy 7?
I think Brotherhood added the most relevant story or a character, and that was something that I think Final Fantasy 15 needed more than it did. Like, because the idea of Final Fantasy 15, for those who haven't played it, you play as a group of 4 best friends, essentially. This one king and the 3 guys who are essentially both his like staff and his like best friend. And knowing their relationship with the king, or the prince, I guess, it really does help you care about the characters quite a bit. I thought that Kingsglaive was the most impressive one to watch, though. And that sets up the plot more so than the characters of Final Fantasy 15. And Advent Children, I remember being quite good. It's been a long time since I've seen it, though, so I feel less well equipped to defend it. I remember thinking the fight scenes were incredible, but I don't remember that much about the story. Just that there were like, I think 3 guys who kind of look like Sephiroth, and then they eventually kind of turn into him.
Yeah, it's like a virus is taking over all the kids and all that. No, Brotherhood, not Brotherhood, sorry, Kingsglaive, I just watched recently, and I was like, yo, it was like a good movie. I was like, yo, like, it's just interesting to watch, like, good on us. But yeah, it was just interesting, just talking of old animes that are in conjunction with other media. And yeah, Animatrix, I think, started that little trend off. And they were pretty good too.
Yeah, it was really solid. I remember the second Renaissance ones that gave you the backstory of the actual war.
Yeah.
That added like tons of great context to the Matrix universe because it had the flexibility to be like, hey, let's show the Matrix world in a way where none of the art looks similar to the stuff that you see in the movies because it's like hundreds of years beforehand. So you see like robots that don't look at all like the machines in the Matrix, and no trench coats, no sunglasses. It was just like, here's how this war started. It was pretty neat. And then there was also, speaking of like the Kingsglaive studio, Square was the one who did the CGI one with the black dude and the Asian girl where they're fighting in the training room. The really nice CGI Animatrix one, like the one that clearly cost the most money. Yeah, that one was made by the Final Fantasy movie studio, who I'm assuming are the same people who went on to make Kingsglaive as well as Advent Children and The Spirits Within.
I was just about to mention it.
The forgotten Final Fantasy film. But I think the only one that released in theaters.
Yeah, it was a pretty good movie. I remember.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. It just didn't have a lot to do with Final Fantasy. I think like thematically it did, but it didn't have any of the like elements.
Any
like,
classic characters that anybody could relate to. But again, a good story. But that brings our weekly podcast to a close. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Remember, especially after talking about it today, it's not be goods.
It's get good, scrubs.